Today I want to talk about Broken Arrow and its various issues, upcoming tournaments, latest patch and update, opinions on balancing players' frustrations, and developers' post-launch efforts. But I also expect to read your thoughts on all of these topics in the comments. This game is undoubtedly one of the most popular RTS, or to be more exact, RTT releases of 2025, even standing shoulder to shoulder with giants of the genre like Age of Empires 2 when it comes to player numbers. It shot well past all RTT competitors by a wide margin, but because of its three main problems, which are lack of saving and replays, rampant cheating, and quitting without consequences, its review score is plummeting. Developers from Steel Balalaika have acknowledged these issues and have written extensively about their plans to fix them. So what I'm interested to discuss with you all is, are these negative reviews evidence of players today not having enough patience, or is it just a matter of incapable or inexperienced developers who might not be getting enough support by their publisher Spectator, for whom this is their biggest game launch to date? That isn't to say that Slytherin is doing nothing, as they have, for example, helped to open an email address as a dedicated support desk for all Broken Arrow issues, meaning we as players can send all our technical issues, cheater reports and unbanned appeals to this address. This is besides the already present in-game report tool. So what has sparked this latest wave of player dissatisfaction with the game, which resulted in a massive number of negative reviews starting on the 13th of August? To those who aren't following Steam or official Discord news, it might come as a surprise that it was in fact the latest 1.09 patch. You would think from past experience with other strategy games that a new patch brings back players and creates a positive effect on the community, but in this case, the patch info starts with a description on what is still a work in progress, including some really big ones like improvements to the anti-cheat system, surrender option and punishment for leavers. Developers' latest comments on the save system from a Q&A post are that they had not even planned to have a save system in the single-player campaign. To say such a statement is a shock to me would be an understatement. Regardless, they are now developing this feature and say it is not a simple task requiring even, and I quote, significant changes to the technical structure and the internal system logic, which makes its release further down the line. This is basically a cautionary tale at this point to all other developers. A save system is a must. After such a disappointing latest patch, whose focus was on unit and faction balancing, I totally understand the players' disappointment, but I don't condone review bombing. It may feel like a tool with which players can hit back, so to speak, at developers and publishers if they are dissatisfied with the game, but it also creates a distorted image of the game for all new players, preventing the game's growth. Because none of these features were advertised as part of the release version, giving the game a negative review for something developers are slow to bring as an update is simply an incorrect way of going about it, and it is an abuse of a good review system. Of course, this is nothing new for Steam, and there have been many examples of review bombing in recent years, as well as different ways of dealing with it. So far, I haven't noticed Steel Balalaika or Slytherin doing anything about it, unlike some other devs or publishers have, and I think it is the best choice here. Simply roll with the punches and do everything you can that the player base eventually turns those negative reviews into positive ones themselves. And we have examples of that too, like Cyberpunk 2077 and No Man's Sky. I might be old-fashioned and not knowledgeable of making games with new engines and programming tools, but the save system is such a core feature that I feel strange even calling it a feature at all. It has just been there for as long as I have been playing games. Even my PS1 console back in 1999 had a separate save card on which my playthrough of Populous the Beginning or Civilization 2 would take up 10 or even all 15 save slots. Broken Arrow is a game I see being played by old school gamers just like me who feel the same way about the save system, so I can totally relate to how much they're missing it in this game. We are mostly gaming dads at this point, meaning we have to save in between changing diapers or putting babies to sleep. Even if you're not a gaming dad with a baby at home and don't need to save during missions, you probably want to watch your matches and improve, which is something you need a replay system for. This is another sore point here, as we don't have that in this version of Broken Arrow yet, and it's making learning the gameplay and reviewing your own matches so much harder and one-sided as you can't watch your opponent's moves. It is also reducing the potential for content creation about Broken Arrow, as players who can make videos and review matches don't have the most basic tool for doing just that. As I said, I don't personally know the level of difficulty to add the save and replay systems to the game as complex as Broken Arrow, and if you are knowledgeable on this topic, please do share your insight in the comments of this video. What I do know is that, for example, games like Counter Clash and Endeavor Rite of Passage also gave their developers trouble in creating save and load systems, but those lone indie devs behind those games managed to find a way to implement those. Anyway, let's move on to the next major issue of Broken Arrow: cheating. The game does have an anti-cheat system, one that even picked up players' use of cheats in single player. With the patch 1.09, these players won't be getting detected or banned, as developers consider them not a problem. And honestly, I agree with the idea that the multiplayer is where cheating should be fought and stopped. And if we go by the data provided by the developers themselves, this system detected and banned over 2,000 cheaters in the first month, a number which grew to over 5,000 banned players in just a few weeks later. I expect in the last 2 weeks that number is probably past 7,000 or more. I am definitely not going to go into which nationalities cheat more or less in multiplayer games, something I have seen being discussed on Steam and Reddit, and let me make it clear, I do not do such divisions on my channel. You're all fellow gamers to me. If developers choose to region lock anyone, it will just create more divisions between us at a time. We need less of that and more understanding, personal accountability, and unity. What is important is that developers have added extra team members whose jobs are entirely focused on management of cheating reports and appeals in the case of false positives. Funding such workplaces is certainly considered not profitable by most publishers, but I see it as an investment into the quality of the game experience, which will pay for itself with less cheating, more favorable reviews, and ultimately more game copies sold. I hope this is the attitude publisher Slytherin shares towards this topic. As for the second issue plaguing multiplayer matches right now, which is the lack of penalties for players just leaving matches for whatever reason, so far we only have some screenshots and plans which the developers explained in previous posts. They want to introduce progressive penalties for leavers, meaning the more matches you leave before they are finished, you have a harder time actually playing in multiplayer. Honestly, for me personally, this was supposed to be not just a day one feature, but something that should have been refined in the betas already. Not having this feature months after release, especially since I don't believe it is technically challenging in any way, it is just a huge oversight by these developers who claim to have individually spent thousands of hours in the game, and how their experience with the RTT subgenre goes all the way back to World in Conflict and Wargame Red Dragon. To keep multiplayer alive and fun for most players, this feature should be absolutely top priority, so I really hope it is going to be part of the 1.10 patch. In addition to that, the devs have talked about adding a surrender option, which is a natural extension of punishing leavers, as this gives a team an option to end a match they aren't enjoying without suffering any consequences. Do let me know in the comments, do you think should the vote be unanimous, or should it be enough for all but one player to say yes to end the match? Now for some good news. Players and fans of Broken Arrow have organized a World Series community-funded tournament with a cash prize pool of $300 at the time of making this video. The stated date is the 27th of September, and there is a Discord invitation link I have included in the description of this video, so you can read up on the tournament's format, official rules, team registration info, and more. It is just too bad there is no Spectator mode in Broken Arrow yet. However, developers have stated that it is a feature that won't be hard to add, and they are already working on it. If you expect to see 1v1 or 2v2 matchmaking at some point in the future, do know that devs have stated in their latest Q&A how they are thinking about adding them, but want you to realize how much this is going to fragment the player base and make every matchmaking mode take much longer to set up a match with fewer players queuing for each individual mode. Other features which the community has been asking for are mines and trenches. Unfortunately, the answer here is basically a no, with a distant possibility of it maybe entering single player as an experimental feature. Last but not least, let's talk about faction and unit balancing. Considering patch 1.09 was all about changing unit values and stats, most of us had to readjust our decks and move some points around. Developers even came out with stats presenting info like how almost 250,000 players have played at least one multiplayer match, and a graph of the ELO ratings distribution of all those players. The next amazing number is over 650,000 matches played in total, with a faction win ratio that is only 2% from being 50-50. Of course, as the saying goes, statistics are like bikinis. What they reveal is suggestive, but what they conceal is vital. So this piece of data does not tell the whole story. And stories of this USA unit or that true unit being OP or having an unfair advantage are all over Steam discussion boards, official Discord and Reddit. The important thing here is that developers seem to agree with statistics not being the whole story and promise to work on balancing continually. I am not going to go deep into the balancing update, as there are many content creators already doing the same, and I am honestly yet to play enough after the 1.09 to be competent enough to judge whether the implemented changes have the desired effects. The important fact for me is that I am having fun playing this game, and have been doing so since launch, despite having so many other games to play and cover on my channel, so almost like a guilty pleasure. And speaking of other games, check out the cards on the screen or links in the description for more RTS games. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all happy gaming.